So this is a really fascinating story. It's about how a major public tech company, Amplitude, came face to face with an existential threat from AI and decided to go all in, even when its own people were the biggest skeptics. I mean, that's the real question so many companies are wrestling with right now, isn't it? How do you survive a massive tech disruption? And what do you do when the world is screaming AI, but the very people you need to build it, your own engineers, think it's all just a bunch of hype? All right, so let's set the stage here. This isn't one of those stories about a scrappy startup born from AI. Nope. This is about an established, successful public company that looked at the AI hype train and basically put up a giant wall of skepticism. So picture this. It's 2023, the AI boom is in full swing, and inside Amplitude, the team is pretty much just standing on the sidelines with their arms crossed. They were not buying into it. To them, it looked like a lot of unproven tech, and frankly, a huge distraction from the work that actually mattered. And you know, the pressure to do AI wasn't even coming from customers or the engineers themselves. It was coming from the top. The CEO, Spencer Skates, said he was getting this question constantly from the board. And for the engineers on the ground, it was maddening. It felt like someone just handing you a buzzword and telling you to figure it out. And look, their skepticism was totally rational. You had one of the co-founders saying a lot of what he saw in the AI space was just grifting. The models themselves had what they called very, very jagged capabilities. You know, they could write a beautiful poem one minute and then fail at some super simple logic problem the next. So when non-experts kept pushing them to just do more AI, it drove the team nuts. They had a real roadmap, making real money. Why chase a ghost? So what does it take to flip a totally rational skeptic into a true believer? Well, for Amplitude, it wasn't some big sales pitch. It was seeing the proof with their own eyes. And that led to this really radical, kind of counterintuitive plan to completely transform the company. This was the light bulb moment. It wasn't a customer asking for some new feature. It was watching their own engineers suddenly start coding at almost superhuman speeds using AI assistance. And that's when the realization hit. Wait a second. If AI can fundamentally change how we build our product, just imagine what it could do for the product itself. So they didn't just sit around and hope for change. They went out and they bought it. They brought in a new engineering leader, Wade Chambers, a total Silicon Valley legend who is already deep in AI. And then they acquired Command AI, a YC company that was on the absolute bleeding edge. They were basically injecting AI native DNA right into the company's bloodstream. Okay, and the playbook they came up with was completely backward from how companies usually do things. Before they even thought about building a new AI feature, they stopped everything to train the entire organization first. They ran a company-wide AI week. They had VPs live coding with AI tools to prove this was real. And then they just unleashed everyone, engineering, product, design, in a massive hackathon. This quote from the CEO, Spencer Skates, just nails their whole philosophy. Forget the product roadmap for a second. Step one is to create believers. Get the team to actually feel the power of these tools for themselves. The thinking was, if you do that, the good ideas will naturally follow. So did this whole train everyone first idea actually work? Well, the results were pretty stunning. A tool called AI Visibility, which was built by just one engineer, Leo Gen, during that hackathon, it went on to double the company's new user signups. I mean, what a massive, immediate win. It was all the proof they needed that this bottoms-up strategy was the right call. But that early win forced a much deeper and honestly a much more uncomfortable change. They started to realize that building with AI wasn't just about adding a few features. It meant they had to tear up their entire rulebook for how they thought about creating products. This slide really shows the core mental shift they had to make. The old SaaS loop is simple, right? You ask customers what they want, you build it, you deliver it, you just repeat. But this new AI loop, it flips the whole script. You have to start with the technology. You have to get a deep understanding of what the AI models can actually do, and only then can you work backward to figure out which customer problems this new, amazing capability can solve. You know, this is that classic faster horse problem. Henry Ford, right? If you ask your customers what they want, they can't ask you for something they don't even know is possible. With AI, the job of the product builder is no longer just to listen and execute. It's to be a visionary who understands this new frontier of what can be built. But let's be real. A shift this fundamental is never, ever easy, and it's definitely not free. For Amplitude to truly transform, they had to pay a very, very high price. I mean, just think about the human cost here. 2 major reorgs of their entire product and engineering org in a single year. That is pure chaos for a team. And they found out a really painful truth. The skills that made you a star in the old, predictable world of SaaS, they don't always translate to the chaotic, tech-first world of AI. And it wasn't just the org chart they blew up. They took about half of their existing product roadmap. We're talking features that were planned, staffed, probably even promised to customers, and they just killed it. Threw it all out. They had to make room for AI. That is the definition of burning the boats. There's no going back. And to really speed up this whole transformation, they went on a bit of a shopping spree. They acquired 4 different companies: Command AI, Craftful, Inari, and June. See, they weren't just buying technology, they were buying entire teams that already had that AI native mindset just baked into their DNA.
So after all of that chaos, all of that painful change, what are the hard-won lessons? What did the CEO who led them through that fire actually take away from it all?
Well, 4 key lessons really stand out. First, being able to adapt isn't about your age, it's about your mindset. Second, you can't just read a book about this stuff. You have to learn by actually doing it. Third, leaders can't delegate this. The founder's job is to run straight at the hardest problems. And maybe most important of all, the truly breakthrough ideas, they weren't dictated from the top down. They bubbled up from the engineers themselves during that AI week. So really, Amplitude's story leaves every leader out there with one critical question. It proves that a real AI transformation isn't about tacking on a few new features. It's about having the willingness to rebuild everything from the ground up. So the real question is, are you just updating your roadmap, or are you ready to rebuild your entire organization?